The reason why we built FAPSCO is to unite the Filipino online professionals industry, to also promote collaboration with each other, and of course, we wanted to help produce skilled online professionals, specialists, and of course, leaders.
We've created POPSCO with a vision to become an organization that supports all Filipino online professionals to be successful in their online careers and businesses, regardless of their affiliations.
I joined FAPSCO because as an online professional who's working at the comfort of my home, I needed other individual can share with me on this freelancing journey.
The reason why we have built the Filipino Online Professional Service Cooperative is to help the ICT graduates, aspirant freelancers, and this is also to help them develop, explore, and acquire new skills when it comes to online professional industry.
Ang paglambo o kalampusan sa usa ka organisasyon nagadepende sa kalidad sa mga miyembro o mga lideres niini. Ang FAPSCO dili lang adunay maanindot kayo nga advokasya o misyon na matabangan kitang tanang mga online professionals na magkahiusa, mulambo o mutubo kita sa atong pagpanarbaho o pagnegosyo online.
FAPSCO for me is a digital opportunity for me to develop and share my skills.
I joined FAPSCO as one of the founding members because I knew FAPSCO is going to be backed by other veteran online professionals and freelancers, thereby having an experienced, solid, and passionate founding members that we have today.
I joined FAPSCO because the vision of the co-op aligns with my personal vision to provide much-needed support to online professionals nationwide.
I joined FAPSCO because the people that I've met have the same values, mission, and vision as mine, and that is to provide assistance, retraining, and coaching to those who wants to jumpstart their career as a freelancer.
I joined the FAPSCO community because it promotes collaboration and up competition.
I joined FAPSCO because this is a group with a helping hand.
I wanted to be part of an organization that would be a pioneer group of individuals who will be working to promote online freelance.
Yes, that's a big yes, and we really are growing together, getting bigger and better this year, 2023. Hello world, hello Pilipinas, Luzon, sabi yung I'll be your moderator for tonight kasi akala ko na mag-iisa lang ako tonight. Now, by the way, mga fellow FOPS Lancers, this virtual program is tailored for our FOPSCO members, the ICT trainees and graduates, and aspiring online freelancers who want to develop, upskill, reskill, and explore more about the online freelancing industry. And this is in collaboration Professional Service Cooperative. Nabulol ako doon. Miss Jams, how are you? Kamusta tayo dyan sa Nasipit Agusan del Norte?
We're doing great here, Miss Celeste. And of course, as what I said kanina on our chit-chat, kakatapos lang ng ulan, so pretty sure I have a different weather from those people living in Luzon. And yeah, I had so much fun with my long weekend. How about you, Miss Celeste? How was your long weekend?
Actually, kakatapos lang sa kabisi-bisihan because we just, we just concluded yung yung General Assembly ng FOPSCO, and we had a blast talaga. Nag-enjoy kami after yung mga kapuyatan na ginawa ng FOPSCO community, and everything ended well, and we're looking forward for another General Assembly next year. And Miss Champ, I can't wait to meet our advocacy guest speaker for tonight. But before that, Ano pa yung house rules natin dyan, champs?
Oh yeah, so there's just few friendly reminders. So of course, this is an online event. You can actually put your phone in silent mode para naman focus tayo with our talk tonight.
Yeah.
If you can mute unnecessary noise that may interfere while you are watching the webinar. And of course, we are looking forward for an active participation. So pwede po kayong mag-drop ng mga questions. Later po itatanong natin sa ating guest speaker for tonight so that we will have more valuable and healthy conversation as well. And you can also type in your location so that we can recognize your presence and greet you there. Yeah.
Okay.
And
so guys, sinabi ni Chami, kindly type in your location, kung saan lupalop kayo sa mundo aside sa Pilipinas. Okay? At kung sino pang gustong magpa-shoutout dyan, please do so. And I guess everything's set up na, champs. So let's keep things going. Our advocacy guest speaker for tonight is the Chief Executive Officer of PumaPodcast. Have you heard about PumaPodcast, champs?
Yes, and you're actually an award-winning group.
Yes.
Kaya I'm so excited to learn more about them tonight.
Okay, tama yung sinabi mo, champs. Yung PumaPodcast is an award-winning podcast and audio production house based, take note, in the Philippines. If I'm not mistaken, yung first yata na podcast nila was January 14, 2019. Matanong ko nga sa guest speaker pag nag-quiz siya mamaya. Okay, so yung PumaPodcast creates content for a global market. Now, upon joining the team in 2019, yung guest natin, champs, had served as a chief operations officer for 2 years, where he helped guide the startup, build systems, make key acquisitions, and develop innovative audio content. Now, prior to PumaPodcast, take note, champs, he worked in a number of fields, including journalism, yung favorite natin, the academe, top list na to, publishing, development, and social enterprise. Now, he has authored books of fiction. Champs, pwede mo siyang ma-invite ito. Books of fiction, essays, and poetry, and has contributed to a wide range of projects, from technical writing, like process manuals and reports, to biographies and coffee table books, to working in television and film. Now, in addition to leading the PumaPodcast team, he also currently teaches at the Ateneo de Manila. Go Blue Eagles! Now, let's join our guest advocacy speaker as he discusses creativity from page to pod and beyond. Parang Toy Story lang yung take. Now, fellow Fops Lancers, ladies and gentlemen, lahat ng nanunood sa atin, let's all welcome Sir Carl Javier. Hello, Sir Carl. Good evening.
Hello, Sir Carl.
Hello, good evening. Ang haba ng intro. Parang nahiya naman akong how do I live up to this? Ganun.
Sir, kulang pa yun, sir. Kulang pa yun. And ano to, Sir Chams, this Chams, Sir Carl's very humble talaga, no? As I've said a while ago nung chit-chat natin, kami ni Annalisa kanina, I've checked yung background ni Sir Carl. At saka yung team niya.
Background check. Parang NBI.
Nag-stalker mode ako, Sir Carl.
Wala namang hit.
Asking nga, galing.
Wala naman. Pumasa naman, Sir Carl. And yes, he did yung credentials niya, yung experience niya. And what perks my interest, Chams, was his yung advocacy niya through PumaPodcast. Yung a variety of topics being discussed. They invited different personalities from different walks of life. And then, as in Chams, mababaliw ka talaga pag kulang yung buong araw sa kakakinig mo ng PumaPodcast.
Yeah.
Sir Carl, anong ganap sa buhay natin dyan, Sir Carl?
I think I guess kung advocacy at advocacy lang, we have to start with the fact na yung salitang journalism, yung salitang journalist, ganyan, parang naging masama siya. And that's something na we've been confronting. Like the data shows out, people don't trust journalists, people don't trust mainstream media. Parang pag sinabi mo mainstream media, parang sinabi mong masamang tao. And I don't think that I'm parang activist or parang yung ganon. I just think na because I have a background in creative writing, meron akong obsession with words and what words mean. And so the way that words can start to mean different and negative things. And so in journalism, it's an approach. It's a way of viewing the world. And there's nothing inherently good or bad about it. And there's good journalists and bad journalists, and there's good journalism and bad journalism. And
Correct.
so yung PumaPodcast, lagi namin sinasabi na we are built on the values of journalism. Yung curiosity, yung trying to gather accurate information and package that information so that it serves people. So maybe nasanay kasi tayo na in the past, merong touch points ang news information. Kung like, I'll probably wind up talking about being older than most people, lalo na pag freelancers, bago, ganyan, we're working in these new careers that didn't exist before because we're working in a landscape that is drastically different. At pag inisip mo yung difference ng landscape, parang yung trabaho ng someone in like 1600 to yung mga pwede mong trabaho in 1700, hindi nakakalayo. And then from 1800 to 1900, yun yung sobrang laking difference. Pero from 1900 to 1920, 1920 to 1950, then from 1950 to 1980, like you just think about the technologies and the jobs that were available. And even like gender and like the availability of work for women and the way we've been able to redefine that. So you start thinking about all of these large changes. And one of the biggest changes is yung information that we're forced to deal with. Kung isipin nyo yung amount of text na binabasa nyo. So, two things. One, sinasabi nila na less ang reading of books. That's true. Like, book buyers continue to buy books. Pero the population in general reads less books. Despite the population in general reading less books, print book na buo na ganyan, we're reading more text. Kasi miya merong literal na text messages. Meron tayong feeds, meron tayong scrolls and stuff. Like parang again with words, right? We're scrolling through. Kasi ano ba yung dating konsepto ng scroll? Diba? Yung ina-unwrap mo. Pero ngayon, endless scroll, right? That's one of the things that we take for granted is actually we continue to use words that are outdated. Kasi yung scroll, diba? Parang yung Roman times, i-unfurl mo yung laman. And then yun lang yung laman niya. And now it just keeps going. So when things keep going, it demands so much of our mind. And it becomes difficult. And I was saying dati may touch point. Ako, sa umaga, ako yung inuutusan na bumili ng pandesal tsaka dyaryo. So 5 a.m., nandun na ako para kunin yung dyaryo. Eventually, one of my first jobs was copy and proofreading para sa isang dyaryo. So literal na 1 to 3 a.m., nasa opisina ako para magbasa ng printout. And then i-imprenta and then ma-ship out para nasa lugar by 5 a.m. And then meron tayong news at certain times in the evening. And then we all sort of agreed on that. But now, there's just all this information and maya, I don't know how much you guys feel it, pero even ako as a news person or someone who covers the news, na-overwhelmed na rin ako. Like, nakakapagod siya. And that's a problem. Kasi mahirap maging engaged. It's hard to care if it's too much. And so what we're trying to do sa PumaPodcast is try to solve this problem of how do I continue to be a well-informed citizen na naiintindihan ko yung mga nangyayari around me, kaya ko mag-engage, etc., etc. Pero hindi ako overwhelmed. Kasi I'm sure at some point, naramdaman nyo to na ang tindi ng news.
True, Sir Carl. No, just like what you said a while ago, a lot of people, instead of reading stuff as a literal na magbasa ka ng dyaryo or any reading materials that could contribute sa growth mo, di ba? And intellectually, mentally, no? And then yung mga distractions. For one, makakarelate ako dyan, Sir Carl, na before, parang less na yung distractions. Kung may balita, may nag-aaway sa kapitbahay, ay madali lang ma-scoop. Pero dito hindi. Kahit sang lupalop ng mundo. Di ba? Naku-cover. Parang nasa kabilang baryo lang yung yung balita nang galing. Pero grabe, yung accessibility of information. And what saddens us, especially sa dito na industry, is that a lot of people don't know which information should be which are credible enough for us to believe in, diba? And then isa pa, yung kabataan, and I really commend your efforts on this, Sir Carl, that you really did your best to engage the youth para para mapalago, mapaunlad yung kaalaman nila about this, no? And yung yung idea na kailangan nating piliin, kailangan nating masuri ng maayos yung information sa kailangan na paano ba natin ma-translate the words ito, Champs, diba? Paniwalaan, yung trustworthy na information. And eto, Champs, yung sa PumaPodcast kasi, what differs it from other podcasts is that I don't know if this is the correct term for it. It has an eclectic or a variety of topics being discussed. And hindi lang parang isang community, isang topic kayo na confined, pero ang dami, 'di ba? Ang dami at nakikater nyo, hindi lang yung kabataan, all ages talaga, Champs.
Yes,
Sir
and
Carl.
that really amazes me as well kasi right now sa totoo lang yung mga kabataan, like in the Philippines kasi reading is not that really part of our culture. Unlike with people living in the European countries that reading is part of their daily lives. Sa Philippines kasi parang only few people are engaged to reading. And of course, we want to spread information, and podcasting right now hindi lang siya in naman sa kabataan but also the adults who want to learn more. And tama nga yung sinabi mo, Miss Celeste, that PumaPodcast catered to different topics, to different issues, and sharing it and also telling people na how to engage themselves with the correct things, not with the fake ones. Kasi yun na nga, yung accessibility information napakabilis right now. It's just that how to dissect, how to classify right from wrong. That's the challenge now on among people kasi hindi kasi lahat are educated enough to tell whether it is correct or not. So yun.
And to be fair, kahit na educated ka, kung overwhelmed ka, mahirap mag-process. Tapos makikita mo, may makikita mo sa Facebook, tapos RIP, ganyan. Tapos hindi pa pala siya patay, or like years ago patay na siya, ganon. Pero because mabilis, and then mababa yung filter natin, mahirap eh. So it's not just education or intelligence o ganyan. You could be the most intelligent person in the world. And if it's well designed, it could still get past you. Parang kasi minsan nagiging labanan ng yung mga edukado kasi ganito, tapos yung educated, so kailangan natin sila educated. It's not. It's really this sobrang kalat ng landscape, and I guess that's why podcasting works, kasi you can't like pick a fight inside of a podcast. In the way that you can pick a fight, hindi mo pa nababasa yung article, nangaaway ka na dun sa headline na ganyan, tapos may mga comment section na ganun. There are now comment sections in podcasts, pero hindi siya masyadong utilized for that. Because we encourage you to slow down, di ba? Parang for us, like you were saying, there's a range. And again, I was saying, we want to solve problems. So one is, ang daming news. Okay, bigyan namin kayo ng one news item every day. 5 minutes lang.
Yes.
1 minute, one thing, 5 minutes, eto pag-usapan natin, and then well-informed ka na. We'll give you the context, we'll slow it down, we won't dumb it down, we'll explain everything for you para pwede mo rin i-assess. Kasi it's not our job to tell you what to think, but it's our job to tell you the things around the story. And then yung longer form namin, for example, meron kaming history show, pero yung history show namin, yung WhatsApp, it is really about, it's built as, what if ganito yung pagturo ng history? What if exciting?
Yes.
Diba? So ganun, what if, you know, what if funny? What if kwela sana yung teacher, hindi yung pinagme-memorize ka lang, pero binibigyan ka ng kwento. So, it's because stories stick with us. And so, malaking value sa amin yung storytelling. Malaking value yung entertainment. And hindi entertainment na parang song and dance and gano'n. But,
Akwela.
diba? Oo.
Slapstick lang.
Kasi it's not, you know, song and dance is not easy. It's difficult din eh. Tapos being kwela is also difficult. Pero, kanya-kanyang approach. And then what we found is, yung listeners kasi namin, nakikinig sila ng PumaPodcast habang nagda-drive, naglalaba, nagluluto, di ba, doing the chores, ganyan. Because you can be learning something while doing other things. And then you stop and then you can think about it. So, we think na it's making people's lives better by making them better informed without like being a lecture. Di ba minsan kasi pag nakinig ka ng AM, parang pinapagalitan ka lang.
Yes.
Pagalitan ka eh. Sinasabi sa'yo, either tama yung iniisip mo o maling iniisip mo. Di ba? Pero pag ito, kwento, yung audience namin actually, nag-meet up sila, tapos pinag-uusapan din nila yung shows.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
And before we proceed, may nagpapa-shoutout dito from Rizal, si Marche Azatilia, at saka si Ana Perez, hello from Tarlac, at saka si Sir Dennis, hindi ko alam, sang lupalop ng Pilipinas na naman siya ngayon. Hello, Sir Dennis, thank you for being with us tonight. At saka si Teen Baguio, hello, Miss Teen, watching from Bataan, at saka si Jefferson Panganiban, I bet estudyante mo to, Miss Chams, from Natividad, Agusan del Norte, at saka si Dayan 𝘾𝙧𝙚𝙚 Morena from Nata City, Camsur. And yes, tama yung sinabi mo, Sir Carl, na because yung mga tao, kahit yung mga nanay, no, they are super ng multitasking, di ba? Kahit mga estudyante, grabe. And kahit mga teachers, gaya ni Sir Carl, ni Miss Champs, na grabe yung super multitasking to the point na hindi na nakakasingit sa schedule natin na how to be well-informed, gaya na sinabi mo, through sa mga news na naririnig natin. At saka sabi nga ni Sir Carl, hindi natin na-filter ng maayos kung aling information ba ang legit or hindi. And what's nice about Champs dito sa PumaPodcast is yung delivery ng information/news is far different from other platforms. Kahit yung news, kasi sa akin lang to, Sir Carlo, yung points that you need to digest and points that would make you ponder na, ay oo no, tama nga, ay oo, baka nga, no? Hindi yung usually yung news na naririnig natin everyday, parang sila yung nag-feed, force feed kumbaga, yung ginagawa sa atin. But in podcast, it made you think. Parang naalala ko yung Schindler's List. Parang,
wow.
And it would crave you for more. Mag-crave ka talaga for more. And yun na, yung nakinig ako kanina, Sir Carl, about yung isang episode niyo sa podcast about history. Oo. How history subject should be delivered in the class. Yung napaisip ako, sana may ganito kong history teacher. Hindi sana ako bobo sa history. Kasi 'di ba, aminin natin, 'di ba, Chams, before, grabe yung memorization natin sa history, yung names ng mga patay, yung mga dates, yung mga out of this world na pangalan ng mga places.
Location.
I even asked my teacher, what's the significance of us studying those information? Ang ending, pinagalitan ako siya, Sir Carla. Kasi hindi ko maintindihan, kasi hindi ko gets. Bakit pag kailangan nating pag-aralan yun, ano bang significance sa buhay natin, in which yan ang ginagawa ng PumaPodcast sa ating chums. It's not only giving us information but making us
understand.
Parang tayo ini-educate, ina-understand and yung significance ng information sa buhay natin.
Yeah.
Sir Carl.
Kasi I want us to move from two things, no? One is a position of curiosity. I would like to know. And then another is, to be honest, a position of ignorance. Kasi most teachers will know this, and it's only from a position of ignorance that you can learn something. If you accept na hindi mo siya alam, aralin mo siya. And the thing with our educational system, and you know, I've been teaching for almost 20 years now, and I've taught high school, college. Yung nakikita ko sa systems kasi natin, one, as students, nahihiya tayo. Tapos pinapahiya mo yung estudyante na nagtanong. Bobo mo naman, nagtanong ka pa, ganyan.
Yes.
Diba? Magre-recite ka pag mali, diba? Papahiyain ka. So, hindi ka na lang magsasalita. Hindi ka na lang magtatanong. So, on that level, yung curiosity is killed because pahihiyain ka. And then, on another level, and I can't blame teachers kasi ang baba ng sweldo ng teachers, tapos ang daming papahawak na estudyante, tapos ang daming section sa bawat, ang daming section na ang daming estudyante. And so, bakit ganun yung pagturo? Kasi, papa-memorize na lang, kasi mas madaling mag-check ng memorized. Diba? Multiple choice.
Objective type.
Ganyan. Ganyan. Okay. Matching type. Ganyan. And then, tapos na ako mag-check. Pero kung critical thinking, parang papa-explain ko sa'yo yung bagay. Ako bilang teacher, magbabasa pa ako ng buong essay. So kung isang section na 40 or 50 students, tapos ang hawak ko na section, 4, di ba? 200 essays yan. Ang bayad sa teacher, hindi naman kasali yung checking time pag kino-compute. So they're not incentivized. And so we come away with educations that are fit to a certain mold. And so I guess one thing that we get to do is yun nga, it makes me really happy to hear na natuwa ka na nakinig ka ng history. Kasi history can be fun and it's cool, and sometimes we're educated out of it. Parang our systems educate us out of the enjoyment of learning. And I mean, that's what a lot of our work is built on, yung curiosity. What if, marami kaming programs, like the history program, or our economics program, o ganyan, yung may mga naisip ako na tao na matatalino, and then naisip ko, what if may podcast sila para ma-explain nila yung ganito sa akin? And that's how our podcasts come to exist. It's not like, uy, nakakatawa si ganyan, bigyan natin ng show. It's what can this person teach me? What can this person share? And then siguro, because curious ako yan, baka maging interest na rin ng ibang tao. So for example, ano ba ang totoong cost ng traffic? Ganyan.
Yes.
Di ba? Parang yung number of hours na ipit ako sa traffic. Kano? It turns out na 1 day of traffic in the Philippines pre-pandemic was worth billions of pesos. Yung a number of hours na nakaipit yung mga tao na unproductive sila. So what does that mean for us? We're throwing away billions of pesos of productivity or happiness. Di ba? So then that becomes a larger curiosity. So guess, or I hope na once we learn how to engage with the issues around us, meron tayong other advocacies that can be formed. At for us, sa PumaPodcast, may limit yung gagawin namin kasi meron pa rin kaming journalistic attempts.
Yes.
So we can't tell people what to think, we can't tell people what to do, but we can give you the story. And it's up to you to build that into your own personal advocacies. Yan.
Yes, correct. Now, going back to ano po ba yung sa PumaPodcast, Sir Carl, going back to how to yung pag-filter ng mga information and whatnots. Question ko, Sir Carl, how do you come up or choose a topic or series of topics to discuss or to feature sa PumaPodcast amongst all
Lahat
ilang
lang pwede, no?
topics? Oo. How do you choose
Right,
topic
so
na pini-feature nyo?
two-part answer yan. One is for the news and then the other is for yung long-form features namin. For the news, excuse me. For the news, meron kaming editorial team made up of high-level people smarter than me na matagal nang sa journalism space, nasa news space, who've run news desks. So we hire top people to run our news. And then every week, meron kaming news meeting. We call it a StoryCon. And our reporters show up with the StoryCon. And lahat kami, may mga baon na, oh, maybe this is the thing that we need to be covering. And then, because may limited slots, five stories lang eh. Essentially, maglalaban yung ideas ng ano bang pwede dyan. Right? And what is most important to our listeners right now. And what also guides us is we approach it from what we've been calling slow news. So yung breaking, hinahayaan na namin sa iba. Yung breaking, kaya ng Twitter yan, kaya ng mga big networks. And actually, hindi naman namin kaya mag-breaking at mag-scoop kasi maliit lang kami. It's the big companies that can handle that. So, what we do is slow news. We take what is important and we won't report on a story until we feel like naiintindihan na namin na maayos. Para mas maintindihan nyo. Kasi di ba, minsan, makikita mo yung breaking. Eto, pap. Right? Pero hindi na naintindihan bakit nangyaring event na yan. Ano yung context? Sino yung mga involved? It's just the headline. There's like 1 or 2 paragraphs. But for us, the value is in how we build out the whole thing para pagbitaw mo, kahit pa naintindihan mo siya. In fact, naintindihan mo siya enough na makikwento mo siya sa ibang tao. Yun yung goal. And then for the other longer form things, it's a mix of minsan merong big idea that needs to be reported on. And what we'll do is we'll find the best person to talk about it. So, for example, meron kaming news show called parang season 3 niya, Catch Me If You Can, which is about disinformation, influencer operations, ganyan. And then, of course, like because we had interviewed him in our economic show, si Jonathan Ong yung naging host niyan with Kat Ventura, one of our reporters. Upcoming, so magkakaroon ng FIBA dito sa Pilipinas, FIBA World Cup basketball dito. So we got si Rafe Bartholomew. So si Rafe is a New York Times bestselling author. He did this book called Pacific Rims. And it's about why Filipinos love basketball. So he's like an American dude who was fascinated at the idea that Filipinos love basketball. Nagpunta siya dito. He wrote the definitive history of Philippine basketball. And now we're making a podcast with him. So it's timely, it's relevant. We think na magiging interested yung listeners. And then it gives you a bigger perspective of the world. Kasi di ba, parang we love basketball. Pero what is global basketball? Tas ang Pinoy, lagi lang, parang most of us, we just love the NBA. Di ba? Pero eto, parang dami, there's so many kinds of basketball in the world. And so we think by listening to this, parang we're opening people's minds, we're sharing something, and parang we're entertaining people and giving them information.
Yes, and gaya ng sinabi ko kanina, Sir Carl, that while checking on your yung PumaPodcast as well as your website, yung content talaga hindi lang naka-constrain sa isang topic. Actually, parang nilahad niyo po para sa masa. Okay? And then, Shams, eto yung one thing na even yung mga yung mga nakikita nating mga issues, in which we're afraid to tackle. Mga obvious, no, na hindi, parang takot tayo in a sense na itakot to, but you're brave enough to open it and discuss it over your podcast, Sir Carl. Like yung, should I say it, yung matters about tokhang, about the LGBTQ thing, which is kahit at some point, na-accept ng ng community natin, but meron pa ring part sa community natin na ang hirap pa rin tanggapin yung community na LGBTQ+++, di ba? Because of yung culture nila. Okay? So those kind of things nag-i-exist, but mga taboo, so to speak, pero ang hirap i-tackle. How do you do that, Sir Carl? Yung mga sensitive, open close quotation, sensitive topics.
So two things, no? Like, I'll talk about those two kasi yung binigay mo example. Yung tokhang, tokhang sa tokhang, we won the Human Rights Press Award for that.
Yes.
And the thing with tokhang sa tokhang is, you expect us to just demonize the drug war. Kasi yun naman, di ba? Parang, basically, you know, as per official count, 6,000 ang pinatay. As per the researchers, up to 30,000 ang pinatay. You could fill Araneta, right? Imagine that. You could fill Araneta Coliseum with the dead. But, and, you know, a lot of the reporting is just around that. Pero we chose to one, have a very academic approach. And then two, look at it from a community perspective. Sino ba yung pwede natin kausapin? Kaya episode 1, we talk to scholars, pero we also talk to the PIDEA.
Yes.
in the episodes, and then we talk to Senator Bato. Tas sa kanya nang galing. Siya nagsabi in our interview, he not said it elsewhere. Sinabi niya in our interview, baka dapat lininis muna natin yung police bago natin ginawa yung war. Sa kanya nang galing. So hindi kami, right? Hindi obviously we have our personal feelings, beliefs about this. But it comes from the people that we interviewed. So we interviewed them, we interviewed the police, we interviewed mga nanay na nawalan. So it feels fair. Diba? It doesn't feel like one ano lang. And it shows the humanity from all these sides. Because we need to acknowledge that for the most part, people who were in support of this, mabuti din naman yung intention nila. Parang hindi naman yung intentionally maraming patay. Yung intentionally was to get rid of the drug problem. Now, whether there's a problem, really, mahabang usapan yan, season 2. Yung season 2 yung running of. In season 2, we ask, sino ba nagsasabi kung anong droga? Sino ba nagsabi, saan nanggaling yung salitang addict at ba't siya naging masama? Yan. So, these are the big questions. So, for Meet LGBTQ, so, we have a show called Meet LGBTQ. And what we do here, which is unique, is we get a couple. Tapos in-interview namin sila separately. So, couple, whatever. And then, kwento nila how they became a couple. So they don't hear the other person's story. And then so you when you hear it, it's really just two people falling in love. And I think that's where we need to approach this from. Kasi, parang, if you approach from the basic humanity of these, it's a very human desire to fall in love, to look for the person, diba? That will be your match. Ganyan, if you believe in that kind of thing. And so we hope that it helps people to see now whether straight ka or not, or any of these options, we're all trying to find the same thing. And so when we advocate for rights that don't allow for their inclusion, parang sama naman natin kung hindi natin niyayakap yung pagmamahal ng mga tao, diba? So that's where we want to move from. It's a very, all of this naman is rooted in a certain humanity na unfortunately in social media it's easy to lose. Diba? Masamang tao si ganyan. O nakita mo yung ganun. Ito yung balita. And then makahanap ng one like piece of news na masama daw to. Ganun.
Yes.
But, let's redirect. Let's focus on what makes us human. Diba? What makes falling, diba? It's beautiful to watch people fall in love. Eh. Diba? To hear how they love each other.
I agree on that, Sir Carl. At saka, I bet agree din si Chami dyan. Sir Carl, sa susunod, if ever may kayo topic na i-feature sa PumaPodcast, how to find your match according sa first, feng shui, second, zodiac sign, third, according to your mother's choice and all, di ba? Ang grabe. Pwede nating mapag-usapan yan, Chavs. Okay, Sir Carl, may question na ako dito. Based on yung sinabi mo kanina, napag-usapan natin kanina that na-overwhelm tayo sa dami ng mga information na natatanggap natin. And being part of PumaPodcast, how do you stay up to date po with the latest developments and trends in your field? And ano po yung mga resources na kinukuhanan ninyo po?
So, Twitter. No, yeah, well,
Twitter tsaka LinkedIn.
Used to be Twitter. Twitter used to be a really fun place. So I guess two things now. One is staying up to date on the news. And then second is, staying up to date for me as a person who runs a media organization. So for the news, kailangan talaga medyo, it's unhealthy pero medyo addicted ka sa social media. So it's Twitter, Facebook, listening to being in chat groups, following things and sort of having your ear to the ground. I'm glad that I don't have to be breaking, pero ganun eh, like I'm just constantly looking at social to see what's going on. And then on top of that, I listen to between 5 to 6 daily podcasts na news, just so that I know what's happening in the world or in certain regions. Kasi parang kung puro like the daily ng New York Times ang pinapakinggan mo, puro American issues lang ang alam mo. So kailangan mo rin ng other source. So makinig ka rin ng BBC and Economist, and then Washington Post for other side. So mixing up the media diet. And then the other thing I follow a lot that is not audio is newsletters. So if you trust someone, usually may newsletter sila. So we're moving now dun sa media. Maraming magandang media newsletters to follow. So if you're interested in media, particularly from a Southeast Asian perspective, Splice. So Splice Media based in Singapore has a number of very good ones. May isa sila na overall media roundup, tas meron silang isang newsletter na puro tungkol lang sa product development. So those are fun, important things to follow. And then getting out there, having conversations with people. So medyo underrated yan. Pero chismisan, ganyan. May chismis ka. Madaldal ka. You hang out with people. Oo. And then hang out with different kinds of people so that you have different levels of conversation. Kasi kung pareho lagi
different perspectives. Oo.
Diba? And have friends na yung meron kayong healthy disagreements and healthy difference in perspective.
I like that. Chams, term natin yan, Chams. Healthy disagreements. Diba?
Yes. Push natin yan.
Hashtag.
Diba? It's important. And then I guess last is for business and leadership, medyo parallel, mentors and coaches.
Yes.
Kasi mentors as people who have been through what you're going through, and then pwede mong takbuhan for advice.
Yes.
And then yung coaches, they don't know what you're going through, but they can help you to provide a perspective. So like at PumaPodcast, we work with a coaching organization called Haraya Coaching. So we benefit greatly from their, from their approach. And then reading, nonstop reading. Yun talaga.
Okay.
Cham?
Wow, that's really interesting, Sir Carl. Kasi, yung kanina, this is my question, kasi nakikurious talaga ako, Sir Carl. When you talk about the love story, it's like, di ba, di ba, Miss Celeste, okay, the love story thingy, it's not the typical narrative that you tell, but you tend to have the creative side of how to retell a story. Kasi sabi mo kanina, it's really the storytelling that says it all. So I'm just curious, Sir Carl, like how do you come up with ideas like for your podcast episode? Like you have already chosen a topic. So what's your creative process like when you do or prepare these episodes?
So each each show is a little different kasi each working process is a little different, but overall meron kaming parang big board. So dati literal pre-COVID, literally big board 'yan. Tapos pupunuin namin ng post-its, ano yung possible topics. And then sino yung possible interviewees, and then we start to move things and match. And then kung may big narrative, so we have like for what we did this for is a show called Super Evil. So that's our true crime podcast. Season 1 was about the Calauan murders, and then season 2 was about the Maguindanao massacre. So ayan, parang episode 1, episode 2, and then titingnan namin sa nagfi-fit where do we start, where do we end. So minsan big post-its, and then for example pambawi sa true crime stuff.
Yes.
I'm working on the latest season of my guitar podcast. So it's with Chino of Itchy Worms. It's Chino Carl Star Picks. And so ang theme namin for this coming season is from zero to meron na akong EP on Spotify. Meron akong 4 songs on Spotify. So from the start, it's gonna be, how do I write a song? How do I arrange a song? So we're gonna talk to composers. Naka-line up for interview, Enamori and Oflamingo, and then we're lining up other people for production. So now I've written my song. How do I record it? How do I produce it? And then how do I release it out into the world? So by the end of the season, merong journey yung show, and then may journey yung listeners. And then specifically for that show, we're asking the listeners, if anybody in your group is, an aspiring songwriter, in the middle of the season, we're gonna ask people to submit their songs. And then we're gonna try and choose one song nakasali dun sa ilalabas ng EP. And we'll fund the production and everything. And then by the end, meron kang song out in the world. Ganon. So it's not just us. We want to involve our audiences. But that's how we do it. We find the story, and we find the themes that we can build around. And then parang, because teacher ako, parang syllabus. By the end of this season, meron na tayong, ito yung na-accomplish natin. Ito na yung mga alam natin na hindi natin alam before.
Yes. Wow, that was fantastic. Kasi yun talaga for me lang, Sir Carl, kasi challenging talaga to think of like the best way to tell a story. Kasi just like when I'm writing scripts for short films, yun dun talaga yung need na yung creative side talaga, and how to retell the story in a way na it can capture the audience attention and also steer audience emotion as well to make it more engaging to them. So, Sir Carl,
I'll give you a tip.
Yes, Sir Carl.
Oh, Sir Carl.
I love it.
Write down the 5 to 10 most obvious ideas. Ano yung most obvious execution ng kwento na to?
Okay.
Diba? Parang, okay, magmi-meet cute sila. Okay, strangers sila. Ganun. Hindi.
Okay. Parang outline, kumbaga, on how you're going to go through to your story.
No, you imagine what, this is gonna sound a little, but you imagine what a weaker writer would do.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Ito yung obvious, ito yung typical. Ito yung typical.
Mga obvious plots.
Magkakasalubong sila, tapos mahuhulog yung ganyan, tapos pupulutin niya. Tapos magkakatinginan siya, mga ganyan, di ba?
Okay.
So, you list down the 5 cliches, and you're like, okay, bawal lahat yan. Bawal yan.
Okay.
Mga 5 to 10. Bawal lahat yan. Okay. And then you try and come up with the ideas. And then another thing that's very important with us is we have yung parang, I don't like using the term so much in devil's advocate, red team. But I like saying red team. Yung parang you just have someone when you're developing ideas, you have pag brainstorm open, di ba? All ideas are welcome. And then once you're actually trying to execute, meron kang tao na magsasabi, what if pangit yan? What if that doesn't work? What are the ways that this fails? What are the ways that this doesn't make sense? So meron kayong internal critic already anticipating where it could go wrong. So yun yung parang two things that we like to implement. It takes more people, obviously. But it takes more time. But we feel like the storytelling shows that it's worth the effort.
Wow. Thank you so much, Carl, for the tips. But it was really interesting to write the obvious and also to have someone who will tell you the cons of each of the choices for the episode. Wow, that was really interesting. So, kaya, in connection to that, Sir Carl, like, what advice you could give to these people who would like to start out in your field in podcasting? Like, any general advice for them?
So yung it's hard to speak from this just because wala naman podcast CEO like 10 years ago like in the Philippines. Like meron naman internationally, but these careers didn't exist. And so I think one of the things probably that freelancers understand is that you need to be agile. Diba?
Yes.
There's the agility na parang there are job opportunities that you will need to train into or you need to develop skills for. And so that's sort of the mindset. So I actually wrote down like 3 big ideas around how advice for someone in any field. Pero if you're starting out in any field, and one is never be too good to, sorry for like, I'm gonna use salty language, pero never be too good to shovel shit. Parang someone needs to, pwedeng shovel shit, pwedeng push papers, whatever that is. I ran a comic book line. I ran, publishing houses. Or, I was an executive in publishing houses before PumaPodcast. Pero before all of that, alalay ako sa isang comic book project. And that was one of my first jobs. And my job was, pupunta ako sa bahay ng writer, kukunin ko yung script, kasi hatid ko doon sa bahay ng artist. And then after 2 weeks, kukunin ko, and then ihatid ko naman doon sa editor, and then papalayout, and then at some point, ako yung naghahatid ng mga cheque. Hindi ako yung artist. And that's okay. Because someone needs to do that work. And I never imagined na kahit naman writer ako or creative din naman ako, ganyan. Hindi ako parang, alam mo yung tao na magsabi, ay, that's beneath me. Like, never be that guy. Kasi there's always work like that. And that kind of work should be respected. Yung low-level work must be respected because it shows your willingness to engage. And it shows your willingness to just do it. Like, nung nag-start ako publishing houses, one of the things that I did was, nag-deliver ako ng libro para maintindihan ko yung pinagdadaanan ng mga nagbo-book delivery.
Like immersing yourself, Sir
Yeah.
Carl.
And like, I used to run a bookstore that was also a bar. Ako yung bartender. Like, never be too good for a job. Like, that's part of it. It's just you're doing work. Every kind of work that you do increases your skill. So, yun yung isa. Na parang the younger you are, the less experienced you are, the more na dapat yumakap ka nga ng bad experiences. Kasi you learn from that and then you become better. And then you can say, hindi ko na gagawin yan, nagawa ko na yan eh. Okay na, nalampasan ko na yan. But you need to accept that there is work that is unsavory and needs to be done. And if you're the one who is willing to volunteer to do it, it's a good look on you. Diba? Kung yung mga iba, ay hindi, wag na. Next time that there's interesting work, Next time na naghahanap yung manager mo or yung supervisor or something ng someone that they can trust to get the job done, ikaw yung top of mind. So, you know, there's many rewards to that, to being humble enough to accept work. Next is yung education and grades, they don't mean anything. After you graduate, parang kung napasaya mo na yung magulang mo na may cum laude or whatever, great. But they don't mean anything in the workplace. And right, it's about your performance and you're willing to grind. So similar to the first one is, eto ako, I'm gonna show up to work every day. And we've had experiences of people na ganon, parang, ay, cum laude ako, so hindi yata ako dapat gumagawa ng ganyang klaseng work.
Big no-no talaga
diba?
yan.
Ganon, oy, sorry diba? So, sorry na lang. But the willingness to show up every day, I feel. And kasi I used to train mixed martial arts. And so we used to call it just grind. Yung parang every day you show up and you just grind out the training. And kahit na pagod ka na, kahit na ayaw mong pumunta, kahit na, marami kang pinagdadaanan in life, but you show up and then you grind out your training. And if you have the same approach to work, parang you just show up and you grind every day, you don't notice how good you get. So, and people will notice. And then the last one is parang, ito naman related to like lifting weights. You have to get your reps in. Diba? Parang if you're working out, you're doing reps. And I guess the way I think about it is, minsan mali yung form mo. Minsan you're not as strong as you were, the other day. Pero every day, you have to be getting reps in. And it's the same with work. Parang you can make mistakes. Hindi kailangan every repetition is perfect. Pero you only become stronger by doing all the repetitions all the time and not quitting on that. So, so all those things na just showing up, working hard, and sort of being willing to do hard work. Di ko alam kung gaano ka helpful yun, but that's really how I have been able to move through my work life. Wala namang like I don't have a family or wealth or something to lean on. So, yung personal work lang talaga yung kaya kong dalhin. So, yun yung na-adopt ko na approaches.
And that's a good way of pagkuha ng mga learnings, diba, sir, is for you to open yourself and immerse yourself sa mga opportunities presented para sa kabubuti ng growth mo, professionally and personally, diba? And eto, going na tayo sa last question, Sir Carl. Okay, kasi busy kasi ito, si Sir Carl. Sir Carl, sa kahaba-haba ng experience mo, sa career mo, sa lahat ng mga achievements mo, how do you measure success po? And what indicators do you usually use para maano mo, I'm successful in this field, and so and so. And sa experience nyo po, ano po yung biggest lesson learned na until now po dala-dala nyo po, or sino po yung tao na malaking impluwensya po sa mga achievements ninyo? And how they've impacted sa work and life approach nyo po?
So I guess yung first part is how do you measure success? And I think as a podcast company, it's, it's much easier. Parang may dashboard kami, may metrics, listens, retention, engagement, like we just have a whole slew of things that we measure. But in my position as CEO, parang for someone in my position, yung existence is connected to revenue, right? It's just making sure that the lights are on. And so yung company success, that's what I'm defining. Yung personal success, I guess, is more difficult. I always shy away from it because baka kasi pag inisip ko na successful ako, hindi na ako mag-effort. So I don't put a measure on. I don't think that there's like a peso value or something. Na I am successful. I think that if you start imagining yourself as successful, you start to build a weird mythology in your head, and then biglang meron kang lakas ng loob sa mga tao na, I don't know, baka I'm making this up, pero successful ako, so dapat ganito ka. Parang I want I want to make sure na wala ako dun. Like I want to continue to be striving. And even so, I guess magkaiba yung success sa accomplishments. And so I keep wanting to hit specific accomplishments. And then success is something for others, I guess, to say or to define. Ewan ko, that I realize that sounds weird, but ayokong parang it's like saying magaling ako eh, ganun. There's no finality to it. Yung sinasabi ko with other people is you actually never run out of problems. You just get better, more complex problems. Parang the better you are, the better the problems you can confront. So, kunwari, as a young writer, inisip ko saan ako makakapagsulat and how do I write this story And if you search for Puma Podcast, a lot of our other shows will show up. Meron din kami parang, yung feed namin dun kasi, if you search for Puma Podcast and you follow that, parang best of Puma Podcast yan. Mga selected episodes that we think people should listen to. And then you can find others. So Spotify, Apple, in Spotify, we're part of this program called Music and Talk. So nandun yung Chino and Carl's Guitar Picks. My other podcast about the future of work is called The Imaginable Workplace. And so that's also, you just have to search that on all of it. So we're on all the platforms. We're on all the socials. Sa IG kami, I guess, most active yung Puma_podcast on IG. Puma Podcast on Facebook. We're also active on Twitter. We do Twitter Spaces, I think, every 2 weeks now. So lots of ways to engage us. But the starting point, the easiest is go to pumapodcast.com.
Yes, thank you for that, Sir Carl. And just like what I said a while ago, sana ma-invite namin yung buong PumaPodcast team
Marami,
in the near
kasya
future.
sa isang hindi kasya sa isang file.
Yes po. And for that, before we end our program, please do not forget po na i-visit, i-like, i-share, at saka mag-subscribe na din kayo sa lahat ng mga social media accounts ng Puma Podcast, as well as po yung Filipino Online Professional Service Cooperative or yung community natin.
We grow together.